Yes, yes. I'm back another one. I told you I'm back, y'all. I know y'all were like, okay, whatever. We don't believe you, but yeah, we're here. And this is the second episode I've been wanting to do for a while. Profession versus healers abstract, right? So, fasten your seatbelt up because, hey, we about to dive deep into this. The first one is boundaries, part two that we just did. Now it's really, really time to go a bit further. So let's get into it. All right. Welcome to the Zodyac Experience podcast and profession versus healers. Something I've been sitting on, observing from day to day for quite some time that has been playing off of boundaries and this. It's kind of the other side to it. You can, I guess, call it because there's a Boundaries Part 2 on my other channel, the Zodiac Star. Y'all probably been seeing that through social media, a couple of clips where, there's me and Star going into Boundaries Part 2. So profession versus healers, asterisk, I think will be a very, very good topic to really get into. And we're going to get into starting with profession. Now, a lot of times there's a big battle that I think that y'all can agree on that has profession as the center of the stage, right? And profession is quite interesting, even though, you know, in some case scenarios, I think it's good to go get your license and basically to understand what you're doing at a more deeper level. That's why, starting this channel, I was so adamant about making sure you had your license because there is a certain degree of understanding the body at a certain level because it's more than what people may think of it, which is more than just rubbing on a back and relaxation and etc. It's way more than that. And most aren't educated to understand it. They just see it as relaxation. And it is a part of it, but it's not the only thing when it comes down to it. And this is going to be an interesting thing. So, starting on the professional side as a profession, sometimes profession can get lost. And I say lost in the midst of a lot of things, meaning depending on your perspective of where you are, some things, like I said, I do agree on getting your license to do so. But I don't agree as that being like your identification of such. Some people will flat out judge you if you got your license or not. And that can get to a point to where it can be too much because some on one side of the coin, people do use their professions as their identity, right? And I understand that, and I don't think anything wrong with it for what they want to do out of it. But at the same time, for me, my profession and the license and everything that I went through was a remembrance of who I am total. It doesn't define me, right? Some people define, and I don't necessarily agree as your profession defining you, but hey, it's your prerogative, it's your world, do what you want. I just think that license, school, and all of this stuff is just another avenue of understanding who you are, right? And this kind of goes more into, as y'all can tell, my journey from the beginning to this episode. I've been growing more spiritually as we go forth. So I think this is more of a remembrance as a profession to help me remember who I am. Because, as they say, there's nothing new under the sun. You know all of this, but this is you remembering who you are, right? But those professions on that side, like it can be taken, it can be some crazy stuff with some professions. Some people, for prime example, if you have been following me on social media, a lot of people has been seeing, I'm in the energy work as well as in addition to my licensed massage or my massage therapy. Yes, I'm licensed, etc. But I've been doing energy work as well. And me doing energy work, a lot of people come and say, you know, where was your training? They hide behind that. Where did you go? And that falls in that profession category. And you can tell that sometimes there may be chaos, there may be all kinds of stuff when it comes down to a profession, because if you're not, there's a profession lingo where some doors or some opportunities may not be given to you unless you have that piece of paper. Some people define if you know what you're doing, if you have that, if you don't have that piece of paper. Some people define that you aren't welcome, or some opportunities may not come your way, or networking, or being a vendor, or a lot of stuff can hide, unfortunately, behind the profession, which I think is there. The part of and unfortunately, you got to register your business. You got to be, you can't just, in today's day, you can't just do things and reach a certain height and reach a certain platform, without going through, unfortunately, those levels of registration. And, you gotta have your ducks in a row in order to reach the mass appeal if you're talking about growing, right? Unfortunately. And then, of course, taxes and all that stuff comes into play. And that's why that you're operating according to the legislation, and according to all the rules and registration and all that stuff that comes forth. That in profession is entangled into all of that. So it makes perfect sense. Unfortunately, you got to do that. Now, you don't have to technically, if you're not planning on trying to grow, establish a brand, trying to do a business. If you're trying to do you, then hey, do you. All you need really is ingredients. But if you are trying to establish yourself, unfortunately, that is a route that you have to do. And the reason it's here is because that can be some form of judgment when it comes down to the profession. Like I said, mentioned earlier briefly, like, you know, sometimes we kind of get too caught up in the credentials of someone. We kind of get too caught up in, the establishment of someone, training of things. I mean, you got to think about it, the way everything is laid out. You got CEUs, you got all kind, and some sort is kind of like, you got to renew every X amount of years. There's a lot of stuff in this profession that people may not even respect you to a certain degree if you don't have the paperwork that said you are, trained to the standards of what classes or whatever, industry or establishment or whatever has trained you for. So you're not reaching the standards, and people can judge you off of that. And this is one of the tangles when it comes down to profession, right? And, you think of doctors and stuff like that. Of course, you kind of want them to have the studies of understanding what they're doing, right? And certain credentials and etc. Massage and chiropractic and everything. So I do agree on the study side that someone should be, studying and their profession or the industry that they're trying to get into, but I don't agree as it being your identity of who you are. And I think this is where it starts to get tangled, because then you'll start to be classified as such, right? And then you'll start to see yourself be classified as such. So it's a very, interesting topic when it looks into profession. Profession is a, more of a controlled system, right? Um, and this is where I'm gonna start integrating a little bit of the healer's aspect to, kind of do the comparison aspect of it. So I also consider myself as a healer, kinda. And the kinda is the asterisk, and I'm gonna get to that way later on. As a healer, sometimes you have naturally gifted individuals. And this is kind of like that, nothing new under the sun. It kind of hints at the word remembrance. It kind of is when a person, the individual, the being, understands that they are way more. And sometimes a profession can try to contain you, lock you down, and say you can't do more than this. This is when I'll start introducing the healer's aspect about it. There are chosen ones that are naturally gifted to do what we do. And it's not about what school we went to, it's not about what training we have. You cannot get to or control or do what I do without understanding who you are. And sometimes that can be lost in the profession, right? There's so many times we can label ourselves, and what we're not truly understanding is we're limiting ourselves because of the profession. If some people may not understand, even they identify that with their relatives, their families, their friends, whatever. Some people don't know how to, they work so hard and it consumes them to who they are. So when they go home, they're still operating as if they're a doctor when they're, maybe a husband or a wife or, whatever the case may be. With their children, they still have the aspect of a doctor. Some people, not all, but some people may have trouble putting that title, that profession down because they may have some internal, you know, trauma, or they may have some depression or some underlining something deeper that they have to deal with. And sometimes for them to feel sane, they have to have something. But I like to introduce or reintroduce, if you haven't heard me say this before, because it ties with the profession, that titles creates entitlement. And this is where we can get more if it's not checked, because it strokes the ego. This is where it can get in trouble. And this is where the other side of the profession um, isn't, can be seen negatively. Not in all cases scenarios, because when you have this profession, sometimes it may come with control and power, and people listen. We're so in a system, even with profession, that we have to listen to things, others, systems outside of ourselves, right? And we're so programmed on that, where if something may happen with a client, they're going to listen to you. Yes, you have more of the knowledge if you have actually studied and went through that, where you can give them that information or knowledge. But to me, sometimes that can be empowered, and you can kind of invoke or force your will over somebody else if you're not careful, right? If it's some people feel empowered, if they're a judge, if they're attorney, great power comes with great responsibility, right? And sometimes in this profession, that can go to some people's heads, and they transform and get consumed. And now all of a sudden, it feels good to be in control or over somebody if that's how you feel, right? Which it shouldn't be that way, especially when it comes down, which is what created boundaries or started to, especially in the massage industry profession. People are vulnerable, if they trust to, all the way down to them allowing you to work with them. as they get undressed to their comfort level. It's a very, very delicate situation that they're trusting in your skills, what you've learned and what you've done and what you've proven to have that you've studied, right? To better help them in their self-care. But on the flip side of that, you can get those crazy situations, right? And sometimes internally of the industry and professional, let's say just we keep it a massage therapist, can judge others based off of what they're doing and based off of their credentials, their work. They'll look at it as, cringy, or they may look at it in different ways. I just seen multiple people have differences in the profession, and that comes with any profession, right? Based off of what study. But let's go deeper with the profession. Even though, and I told a good friend of mine, and multiple friends, multiple people that is, trying to get their license in massage, that clientele and clients are not going to look at you based off of your GPA. All they care is if you have that piece of paper or not. It doesn't matter if you barely passed or you passed with flying colors. Did you graduate? Do you have those papers? Once you have those papers, you're going to be looked at like everybody else, regardless of the paper. And this is why it doesn't matter, because sometimes just because you have that piece of paper don't mean you always know what you're doing either. That it's just a piece of paper, right? That you, unfortunately, in a lot of industries, you have to have in order to operate, right? In the professional field. And if you're a small business trying to be in a professional field, in a small business, you got your license, did everything there. Sometimes that can be taken advantage of, because then some clients can look at you as, desperation of trying to get started. They try to manipulate your prices and all of this, which is why I encourage the boundaries episode that I previously did. Look for that, to kind of go in there, because that's very important. But it's up to us. Yes, unfortunately, you got to get those, but don't let it define you. Going back to the healers, what I do is directly in tune with who I am as a person, right? And it means there's certain things I do because of my spiritual journey. There's certain things I do that you can't teach. There's things that I do that you can't teach. There's knowledge that I have that you can't learn, because as a healer, right, you can't, it's not about what you know, it's about being in alignment, because the knowledge and everything that you need to know is through source, it's access and being in alignment, being in tune with your higher self, universe, etc. But sometimes you don't need to know, you just need to be able to listen. And that can be frowned upon by other professional, individuals that has that title, because then they feel that your knowledge isn't good enough as a healer because you didn't go through the protocol that says a piece of paper. And this is where it creates a lot of confusion, right? A lot of confusion, because now there's judgment, right? And when you're in alignment and you have God-given talent, you have source alignment, you have awakened to, Christ consciousness, to source, and you're working with the universe, all the knowledge you need to obtain. It's not about retaining knowledge, which can be a trap situation with profession, because you need to obtain it, you need to know it. But as a healer, you need to be able to access unlimited knowledge, which is way more than our brains can handle. Way more. So I don't need to know it for some certain situations. I need to learn how to listen, and I'll be guided for what I need to know. But let's go a little bit deeper. As my spiritual journey unravels, I start to realize something. Is there such thing as professions, healers, going back to titles, creating entitlement? Is there really such a thing? Because as a healer, as a professional, as a license, as everything goes, I believe more in the energy aspect of it. You know, one of my teachers used to say, I'm gonna put a unalive bird down and bring it back to life if you're a healer, right? But at the end of the day, I like to introduce what I call space holder, right? Because as a healer, you're literally initially saying, regardless of this person wants to be healed, regardless of who they are, regardless of what they think, I'm going to help and fix things about them against their real will, against their belief, against if they want it or not. It's kind of invasive when you think about it in that perspective as a healer. And the problem is we have a lot of times we look outside of ourselves. They come to us based off of, a lot of people come to us based off of their profession or, based off of your title. And we think we're healers based off it doesn't matter what you're going through or you can believe, I can help you. And it's good that we have that confidence that we're able to help, but sometimes we can be overconfident in helping. Meaning, regardless of how they feel, you're going to help them. But is that accurate? Because another thing that I say of future licensed massage therapists is they are in school to become a licensed massage therapist, not to replicate one. Think about that. As a profession, all you're doing is replicating in your profession what you've learned. You're replicating what you've studied. And it's good to have, a foundation and knowledge. But if all you do is replicate because of your title, what if you're studying CEUs, all it is a replication over it all, then you have a ceiling that you can't come past. You have a ceiling where you can only grow so much. You have a ceiling that you can only rise so far because you've contained yourself to the title. You contained yourself to the rules and the operations and how it is, which is very similar to any system. It can be religion, it can be, whatever the case may be. I don't want to go too deep into that. But as a profession, I kind of put that at the bottom, just a systematic matrix of operating within a system, and you frown upon who isn't operate out of the system. But you can be intrigued off of someone that is, unfortunately, as I say, that is operating in some part of the system in order to operate, but they're functioning outside of the system, but are called healers. But then that has its own constrictions and stuff as well, because now you really kind of left one system to do somewhat of another. And I'm not talking about a system externally in the like the profession field. Healers has a system within themselves that they got to deal with. also for professions, you also have a system within yourself as well. But usually you lean towards what's outside of you and just do what the book says, you know, uh, do what the CEUs, and your knowledge is based off of reciting what you've read or what you've learned and what you've seen and what you're doing. It's a recited way, it's a replicated way, it's a fabricated way, is non or is artificial way, and it's only so much because the idea is for you to conform to other systems within the system. If that's corporate, if that's company, if you're trying to do your own company, make sure you abide by, all the rules that goes in for you to operate under your own company, even if you're trying to do things yourself, right? And this is part of the problem where professions can get in trouble, which I see as limited. There are some good things, as far as like studies and stuff like that, but it hits a ceiling. And this is where, most have a trouble breaking through. But once they break through that or the matrix, then you can try to, it almost like they become healers, right? And when they become healers, the new system from external becomes internal. Because now you're sitting here saying you're doing things that are outside of the box, which is good. It's a step to me, in my perspective and belief, in the right direction. But we still can fall victim to the word healing. We still can have limitations on it because it's another title. You traded in a title to subscribe to another title. And you're thinking that title is different, which it is, but labeling yourself as a title still conforms you and limits you to a certain degree. So now, instead of going down the rules, now you're dealing with internal problems, or you're dealing with leaning on over achieving, overpowering your will, your thoughts. It becomes now invasive if it's not checked, because now you're operating out of the system, but you're functioning out of ego. You're operating, I can't even say that again because I'm speaking from the soul. I already know, but you're operating out of ego, right? And, trying to feel who you are. I'm a healer. I'm a healer. And even as a healer, yes, there's natural gifts and abilities, and you learn more of the spiritual aspect, but that's not just who you are either. In my perspective, I'm more than that. That's where, if you've seen the title, the asterisk starts to come in. I'm going to reel that in slowly. And like I said, I introduce space holders because at the end of the day, can you do anything against anybody's will? That's the question. Can you do anything if someone doesn't agree to it? If someone says no, if they don't believe in what you believe, if they don't believe in your work, they don't feel comfortable with you, they don't, you know what I mean? It's kind of like that song from Jay-Z, you know, what is it? No Church in a While. If you haven't heard that song, go check it out. The chorus specifically, what's a human being to a mob? What's a mob to a king? What's a king to a god? What's a god to a non-believer? Those specific words. But if you're a healer, as you say, that doesn't matter because you're saying I, which is stroking ego, I, which is wanting you to be entitled and labeled and looked at as maybe a guru, I, which is maybe can be considered, and this is why I say internal systems, but You might want validation for your work. You want to be seen a certain way. Basically maybe even wanting to overpower or receiving someone else's power to try to stroke your ego or power you up. It becomes a I situation when you start saying healers, because then people may look at you as and giving their power over to you as you can heal me, which is another or not too different from the professional system. They get sick, they go to the hospital. The brainwashing this. I'm stressed, I go to get a massage. And that's all they think massage is good for. Right? There's a lot of things that if we're not careful or we don't think about a lot or too often, that we can find ourselves in trouble. So what really happens? Because you and I both know, if you got to unalive anything, his transition is gone. So are you really a healer? Or is that something you're just saying to fit and describe who you are? But if you really knew who you are, I wouldn't, in my perspective, I'm more than a healer as well. And I'm not going to subscribe and put myself in a box because your inner, I don't want to say inner demons, but your internal system may kick online. And sometimes a lot of people do things or achieve things to become something or create an image, for the world, or a representative for the world to see, even though they're hiding their real selves, right? So if you subscribe to being in the system, you're not really looking to help humanity like that. You just kind of want to come in, get your license, do what you want to do, and going about your day. I'm not talking to you. Do your thing. It's your prerogative. You can do whatever you want to do. But the ones that actually care and want to help more, I'm also challenging you to arise, even though you most likely broke out of that low vibration containing system of profession. But now there's another system that is more internal that you got to watch out for as healers. You're more than that too. And this is now going back to what I said earlier. This is where I introduce space holders, right? And as space holders, you get to a point where you realize that everyone and everything, regardless of what you believe, is self-sustaining. If you believe that the body regenerates itself every year, you can, a lizard tail can be chopped and it can grow back. You can pull up, weeds from the earth. And if you don't do it from the root, it can grow back. You can, when you have surgery, right? What's the number one thing that happens with surgery? Rest. Why are you resting? So you can heal. You don't need any external force. And yes, of course, they're going to give you, medication, etc., and chemical things to help, but it's not natural and it's artificial. So sometimes the body can fight against it, is why why you get side effects. But if you understood that everything you need is already on the earth, and got more into nutrients and fruits and vegetables and herbs, and understanding what medicine naturally is for you right here on earth, you ain't got to worry about them side effects. Straight up. Understanding H3O, but this is what causes a tsunami in especially the professional industry. Because if people understood who they are, understood if you took care of your body, ate the right things, what you can do, the power you have within you disrupts the entire system. And yes, you will look at people, if it's licensed healers, whatever, you will look at them as assisting you versus you handing your power and everything over to you like you can't do anything. You play just as big as a role talking to the clients or whoever's seeking the work. You play just as big as a role as anybody that's working on you. So I challenge you, are you really healing against the will of someone who needs to be healed? Or are you assisting, facilitating, which is also taught? Facilitation, right? So how can you call yourself a healer, which is can be seen as stripping the power from the client to say, I healed you, especially if the client is not even aware that you just assisted them to heal themselves. So are you really a placeholder? Are you just holding space or a space holder? Are you holding space for someone to have their healing done? Even if it's them showing up, they still got to show up for them in order for you to work on them, down to the bottom base of it all. That's something to think about because a lot of people say that healing word, and I don't know if they truly understand because I go as far as this. Because there's a lot of people that I said multiple times. There's a lot of people out here calling themselves healers that is going through shit at home. They're going through craziness because the only person you can truly heal is yourself. And most healers skip themselves to work on somebody else. They skip themselves to work on somebody else. How are you going to sit here and call yourself a healer when you can't even heal you? Heal you first. We're so used to it, and it's so easy to delegate and just evade our problems because it's so easy to look externally to work on somebody else's problems where you can see what's going on with them, but you can't even see the speck in your own eye. Are we really healers? Really? Or are you more than that? I'm more than that. So I can't subscribe to the healing category. Because something else that's kind of funny? Healers can also want, it kind of goes along with the validation. This is why you see all of these videos. This is why you see all these people, putting out, this is what I can do. This is what I can do. And yeah, I understand marketing. I understand advertising. I understand that's a tool in order to get people to understand your abilities and what you can do so you can bring money or business and attention to your skill set and what you can do. I get it. But at the same time, I also get something else. You know what that is? You know I've been here for 4 years. Y'all been seeing the same backdrop for 4 years. From where I am in this room, and I truly believe I evolved and outgrown this room. So you're going to see different backdrops coming in the future, maybe more nature. I'm not sure yet, but I definitely wanted to get this episode out. A good friend once told me, as I'm doing my energy work that has gained attraction all over the world, from, you know, connecting with people from Bali, amazing people in Bali, all the way to Seattle, people flying in, people wanting to experience. And one of the main attractions is others who wants me to teach them. They want to understand what I'm doing. How am I doing this? How is it that you got similar training, or in some schools I met some that went to the same school, and I realized I didn't have to finish those schools because I evolved past them. And I evolved past them because instead of listening to the professional connection, I connected to source. And when I connected to source and then got my knowledge and wisdom and listened and understood that there's way more to the body that people aren't talking about, that everybody has, including you start to see the results that I put out. And now, I got so many DMs, teach me how to do that, or what school did you go? I just don't understand the illusion where you just won't tell me where you went to go get training so I can do it too, because they think it's as easy as a professional, it goes into the profession mentality. It's just, I go, I get this training, they teach me how to do it, and I'm going to monetize that, trying to put me and validate me as a guru and trying to put me above everybody else because it's a new trend and all of this stuff. And now people got to come to me if they want this healing. People got to come to me to do this work, and I can monetize and I can be separate from the average where everybody else, and people can look at me different. And if they're curious, they got to come to me for it so I can monetize off of this stuff when I'm not even in the true art of it, because this is just something to stroke my ego and to get paid for versus a lesson of who I truly become. By understanding the body and understanding thyself at a whole nother level. That's one of the reasons why y'all have not heard from me in a while, because it's not a simple structure. Go learn this from a class. You have to become this. Y'all not looking at a training course. You're looking at an extension of my authentic self. Understanding how to tap into me and operate from within out, which creates the effect or creates the healing, because now I don't even want to label myself as a space holder, because titles creates entitlement, and titles, whether you know it or believe it or not, are limiting. They're limiting. They limit yourself every time you label yourself, because people think that love is the strongest vibrational frequency, and they're wrong. And they're wrong because they don't even know that, because they're uneducated. They're still in the system. There's a hierarchy. There's levels. There's levels to this. And unfortunately, sometimes you have to go through these levels, but look at it from a different perspective of remembrance, not an entitlement to be who you are. Understand who you are. You didn't come here to be a doctor, a healer, or none of this. You know what you came here for? To be you, to help humanity by being yourself. That was perfectly 44 minutes when I said this, so I take that as confirmation. I'm watching the clock. I simply am. I'm my authentic self. This is why my work can be felt, not just seen. And I've reached a point, which a good friend from mine, that also been on the show, Tammy, Somatic Healings. gave me a question that really rattled, because that's kind of why I went off in a temper tantrum, to say, why are you even showing your work in the first place? You know why? Because you understand that if you're showing your work, yeah, your initial thought and intentions can be trying to advertise to people that may need the work. But on the flip side of that is also for validation of your work, maybe even subconsciously. If I put this out there, is somebody going to trust me enough for me to work on them? This is why they call it practice. Is somebody going to allow me to do what I do, or allow me to be me, or allow me to operate for who they think I am? Not knowing the circumstances and everything that I get, from home when I'm just by me or just by myself. I got to figure this out in some way or capacity. Have you meditated? Do you spend time with nature? Do you go within yourself? Do you battle your shadows? Do you check your emotions? Do you keep in check? And when I say stroke the ego, that doesn't mean eliminate the ego. That's learning how to embrace and incorporate the ego, because there are good things about the ego that you need, that builds that self-confidence, that pushes you through things and down. And when you're feeling down, that's when the ego can come in. Throat kind of dry real quick. Let me get a little something. Hold on one sec. Got some sparkling water right here. Right? Right? So what you have to learn is how to simply be authentically you. That is the reason for the asterisk. Because being a professional healer, being a professional, being whatever you think that title is, doesn't even matter. Because when you're around your loved ones, when you by yourself, when everything is there, those titles don't even matter. They don't even matter. We sometimes, there's a lot of us that hide behind our attributes and our accolades and all of our stuff, obtaining achievements and rewards and all of this. But like Captain America say, you take all that stuff away, what are you? Who are you? You're more than just, I'm heart, I'm pure heart, I'm love. You're more than that. Because you're limiting yourself. If you have an answer for it, you're limiting yourself. Authenticity is the greatest, strongest vibration, followed by knowing, followed by love. And if you've checked out the Zodiac Star channel, you'll know that love is learning. So if love, the definition of love is learning. So the definition of love is learning, and learning who you are, that transition up to knowing. And once you know who you are, know thyself, then that transition to you authentically being. And if you know how to operate within being yourself, then what's the point of calling yourself anything outside of just being? Don't it feel good to just chill, just be? That's why people who are lazy, we look at it as a negative, as a negative situation, as a negative thing. That's one of the purest form of being lazy, because you're just being. I don't need to move. I don't need to do that. I'm just being. And some people, when it comes down to profession and titles and everything, they need identity. And when they need identity and they don't have identity, they kind of self-implode. They kind of self-destruction, because they're not understanding. They want to be separate. They want to be special. They want to be, you know, the outcast, the rebel, something different. And they're looking externally to find something they have internally. Regardless if I've ever teach or if I would ever teach energy work, because I haven't. But if I ever teach energy work or anything like that, you're still not going to be able to do what I do. It's not going to look the way it looks for me. Now you're trying to replicate me and you can't be me. But you know who you can be? You can be yourself. And if we go on a deeper level, we're all one. And I'm not going to do because this channel, that's for the Zodiac Star channel. We're all one. We all come from the same source. We all come from the same creator. So technically speaking, I'm you and you are me, but just different perspectives from my belief. I'm gonna digress from that there because this is more surface level. But at the end of the day, understand who you are. Don't trap yourself in the professional aspect and professional field. Some clients don't even look at you as a human being. They look at you and think you're just in this room waiting on something to happen or waiting on something to happen to them that they can call and come to you tomorrow. Some people they subconsciously don't even look at you as if you have a life. Some people don't even respect your knowledge and your voice of who you are if you don't even have that piece of paper. You can't even speak to them because it's always a separation being caused in some aspect, shape, or form. Divide and conquer the professional industry. That's limited. It's the lowest limited part, but this is where everybody is. And for ones that wants to be here, I know I'm here to help humanity. Yeah, you can tap in within yourself. Yeah, you can do a lot of things. Yeah. But have you dealt with you first? Are you limiting yourself from your true capacity that you have? Because if you learn how to tap in within you, that all-knowing portion of you that's connected, that gets access and gets knowledge that you can't find from a book, that gets knowledge that can't be handed over. Just being authentically you and knowing how to express inwardly, outwardly already sets you apart, even though we're all together, because operating inwardly, outwardly is not doing anything but reminding others that they can do the same. You being you is going to encourage them to be them. You being you is going to encourage them to be them. Y'all haven't seen that new movie, The Thunderbolts? They have the asterisks on it. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. That's the reason they gave me the idea for the asterisk. The Thunderbolts name change. I'm going to put it that way. Because usually when you mean something else, you put the asterisk on it. I'm not even going to say what it is. I'm going to just leave it there. But the meaning behind the asterisk is saying, do you even need to call yourself anything? Or can you simply just be? Can you work on yourself and go within? Can your being be expressed by you going inwardly to operate outwardly? Can you do that? And like I said, sometimes our crumbs of trails to remember who we are can be in a school, can be in a book, can be in a video, can be in training or a workshop. I'm not putting down that, but don't get defined by that and don't use judgment based off of that. The whole idea is for you to evolve. Your work, what you do. Because we're in an age now where we simply just want to be. And simply just being is strong enough. It's the strongest thing you can do. So I challenge all the healers to look deeper. Are you trying to operate externally only based off of the profession and the training that you have? I asked the profession and the training that is that all you care to do is replicate what you've learned? Is that the source of your skill set? Right? Are you a seer? You have to see it to believe it aspect, right? I challenge all of them. Any title, any word you can think of outside of just being you, are you limiting yourself? Are you limiting how far you can go? I never finished the, somatic healing because when she asked me, um, are you doing it to gain clients? Are you doing that for yourself? For validation? Because if you're simply being by yourself, why do you need those videos for? Because technically speaking, when you authentically be yourself and you vibrate that frequency and that energy out of you just being you, you are automatically going to draw people to you. That's the reason why I said I've been here for 4 years. Outside of those videos, marketing never did well for me. People that seen the videos never did well. It never did well. Like anything outside of word of mouth and simply the reviews and people drawn to me and spreading the word is the reason I was able to operate for 4 years. There's not a lot of people, and I'm not saying that nobody was interested in the videos. I've gained some clientele. Some people did come and see me based off of those videos. Some people did come see me based off of what they saw. But most 90%, at least, if not more, came to me through me being who I am. And that's being shared through the word of mouth of others and their experiences. And what was written on Google. So Amy asked me, do I really need those videos to be who I am? Once you understand and get to a certain level, that doesn't mean I'm going to stop doing the videos, but do I really need to? And made me get a great pause because I'm still trying to find the courage to do another video. And I did one video. I did that Netflix video I put out. And after I put it out, the energy I got from that was different than any other video I put out. Because I put the Netflix video out and I'm like, it's a new question. For what? What I put that out for? Initially, I put it out because I got tired of people asking me to do this, and all that. And I put out something like, boom, just to kind of like, I don't know. But I asked myself, what I put that out for? There's no reason to. But I do love to create. All the videos y'all seen, except for the one at the park, my oldest son, he did all those angles, all those twists and turns and swirls. He did. He get 100% credit for that. He did all that. But I took what he did and stitched it together, and songs and clips and cuts and pastes and effects. I did all that. Other than that, I did 100% of my videos. I'll say 99% of my videos. Sometimes I've used a filter. If you remember the Halloween one, there's a filter that is kind of pre-made video and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, what? Yes, marketing, advertisement, getting the word out. I get it. Yeah. But that's responsible for 2%. So is it really helping? Or, I mean, yeah, because people are looking at it, but most people like to be entertained too. Most people just like to see a nice video. What problem are you solving? And me, my niche or niche is to help you discover who you are. That's why it says rethink back to yourself. That's my mission. It's for you to understand who you are. I'm not doing massage to relieve your headache. I'm not doing massage because you got this problem. I'm not doing massage because you got that problem. I'm not doing energy work so you can experience something cool to see if I can get you to wiggle and tickle. I'm not doing energy work because you want to see if I can control and raise your foot and do all of this stuff. Yes, you are curious about it. But what it is for is to get and help you to get to the root cause of your stuff. If you got trauma or whatever, is going to assist if you in agreement for you to discover you at a way deeper level that you didn't even know existed within you. That's why it's resync back to yourself. And the tools I'm using is massage and energy work. But above all, the only tool that's really going to help is me being authentically me and you being authentically you, and we be in agreement. I resonate and operate and vibrate at a frequency for you to match, because everything that you need, you already have. And I am a reflection of that through the massage, through the energy, however. But you are just as important, and you have to do just as much as work. Because guess what? If you're not open to it, if you're not, if you're not open to it, you don't believe in it, you don't, all this stuff, ain't nothing gonna happen. Nothing's gonna happen. My videos of energy and moving around is based off of how open that client is willing to go. How deep are you willing to go? Are you truly, really trying to resync back to yourself? Or you just curious about movements and seeing what happens? That's the beautiful thing about it. So that's something to think about. Profession versus healers. Asterisk, does it even matter? It doesn't even matter. Because anything you say outside of yourself is limiting. You have confined yourself to be lower than what you are trying to achieve. That's the message for this profession versus healers. Go deeper, go further. And as we always say, remember, with love, to resync back to yourself.
Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you share, like, comment, and subscribe so you can get notified on the new uploads to the channel. If you're watching this on my website, thezodiacexperience.com, make sure you join the email list where you can get notified on new episodes, or even a chance to join the live show, me and the audience, and even get some cool gear like this jacket and shirt. If you're listening to this on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple, iTunes, whatever you are, make sure you follow so you can get notified as well. And last but not least, if you're not following me on any of the social platforms, IG, Facebook, TikTok, etc., everything is at the Zodyac Experience. All the links, everything else could be found down below. Appreciate you tuning in. Once again, thank you. And remember to resync back to yourself.